Hello, in this presentation we're going to set up the sales tax in QuickBooks Online. Here we are at the QuickBooks Online dashboard. We will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. We're going to be entering the sales tax options into QuickBooks Online, setting up the sales tax options so that we can then go forward and use them to create invoices and sales receipts. The sales tax setup has changed a lot in QuickBooks Online recently as of the time of this presentation. It could have potential to be a lot better because they're trying to automate the system so that we can just choose the location and the sales tax will in essence be calculated. So if we have different states, then the location will drive the sales tax, and rather than us entering the different rates for the different states, the system should be able to pick that up. So in order to do that, what we're going to need to do is set up sales tax for each particular area that we believe we're going to be using sales tax in. We're going to have to set up our addresses for our customers correctly, make sure that we have our address in there correctly, and then QuickBooks can then make the decision as they track the sales tax for each individual invoice by the address that we are using for the customer as well as our own, and try to derive the correct sales tax settings. So it has potential to be great, but also for a problem like this, we might want to standardize things, and standardizing things and just putting it in a rate so that we can get practice on it can be a little bit more difficult. So let's go through this and set this up. We're going to go to taxes down here. This is going to be the item to set up sales tax. If it's not set up yet, your system will have something that looks a little bit different. It'll just basically have a green icon saying set up sales tax. Not typically something you have to pay for at this time. You just got to go through there and go through the setup process. Now the setup process, unlike prior to this time period, used to have an area where you enter the sales tax into it at some point. So you'd have to basically look up the sales tax, enter the sales tax, and there's a lot of complexity in terms of different types of sales tax settings. QuickBooks now, just if you're looking for that sales tax, it's not going to be there, at least at this point, because the idea here is that we're just going to choose the area and choose the agency, and then QuickBooks will automatically set up the sales tax. There's no real way at this time around that, meaning you can't just put in a straight rate for something like a practice problem, or if you had some kind of special circumstance. However, when you create the invoice, you can then go back in there and make adjustments. Once the sales tax has been calculated, you can change the adjustment of the calculation. So to do this, I've already set up a couple here. Let's just go through and see these. We're going to set up a new, so if you wanted to set one up, it'd have a green icon to set up the sales tax, or if we were going to add one, we would add an agency up here. I'm just going to go through the editing of the sections. Now we started this problem with a New York, which is actually less familiar to me. So we're going to click here, and it's got some more complicated sales tax settings, and we're just going to put in the sales tax information. And all we need to do is have we picked New York. We had the filing as the location. We had the filing frequency. We're going to say monthly. That's going to depend on the different locations. How many times do we have to file and pay? That's going to depend on the state and or the country, and probably the amount of sales tax that we have. So if we have less sales tax, possibly we may only have to do it quarterly or even yearly. If we have a lot of sales tax, we may have to process it more than monthly, bi-weekly, or something like that. We're going to say the start date is January, and then we're going to say the start date is going to be January 1st, 2021. That's going to be the first year of our operations that we're working this problem. Of course, whatever you're putting information in, if it's something other than this problem, then put in the correct start date. And that's it. That's all you can put in right now. So it looks almost too simplified, like there's not enough information here. And we'll go through what else needs to be done in order to have QuickBooks calculate this stuff. So then we're going to save this. That's going to be it. And I'm also going to put in a California because I'm a little bit more familiar with that. So we'll actually use a California one as well. So I'm going to click on California. That's going to be the California State Board of Equalization. And once again, it's just going to be monthly in terms of the frequency. We're going to put January start of tax period. And I'm just going to keep this as the default date because that was working for me. So I'm just going to keep that there. And we're going to close this out. So this is going to be the other settings. So that's the first thing we need to have set up. Now, we put in the inventory items before but we need to make sure that we're allowing the sales tax. So before we go in and look at an invoice and see if we can calculate this thing, we want to go back to the inventory items and make sure that we now have the sales tax set up correctly. In order to do that, we're going to go to the sales item up here. So we're in sales on the left-hand side. We will select the sales item. And then we want to be in the products and services. So make sure you're within products and services. These are the products and services we have. Everything that's for us on a guitar, in essence, which is what we sell, is going to have sales tax related to it. The taxable area is right here. So now we've checked off the ELP, but the rest have not been added. So in order to do that, you're just going to say edit to edit the tax settings. We're going to scroll down and we want it to be taxable. And I'm going to put mine as retail here on the drop down setting. And then taxable retail item here. Note that you will want to do some more research in terms of your tax settings to make sure you got the right tax settings, because obviously those will change. I'm just going to put in some tax settings that we can then use, and then within the problem I'm trying to use just a flat 5% rate once we actually calculate the sales tax, so that we could just see how sales tax works. Once we know how the sales tax works, then of course it'll be the same, although the rates will change depending on location and other types of circumstances. So we're going to keep that, and then we're going to do the same for the rest of our inventory items. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do the same thing for this item. We're just going to edit this. We're going to scroll down and we're going to click taxable. And then here we're going to put retail. And here we're going to be taxable retail. And that's going to be it. I'm going to save it and close that. And so we have a check mark here. We're going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to say this item, it's going to be taxable. We're going to say it's retail. And it's going to be, of course, the taxable retail. And save and close. And then I'll do one more, and just to see this. Note, we're not going to be doing the service item. So this is a GSP, this is a guitar. So I'm going to say that one. And we're going to scroll down. We're going to make it taxable. We're going to make it retail, and we're going to say that it's going to be taxable retail, save and close. So now we've done this. I've done this to all of them, so I just repeated that process. So notice this first one is a service, so we don't have taxable there. Second one's a taxable, so we have it checked off, checked off, checked off, checked off. Then our service is a service, nothing in terms of taxableness, nothing in terms of taxableness here. And then down here, this Wildcat is also a guitar, and that one has been taxable as well. So now we're going to go in and just look at a test invoice. We're not going to actually make an invoice, but we just want to look at it and say, what's going to happen now? Will this work? And so I'm going to go to the invoice tab. So we're still in sales over here on the left hand, and we're going to go up top to invoices now. And within the invoices, we're going to go to new invoice. We're not going to record it, just test it out. I'm going to make a new invoice and see if the sales tax will now record. Just going to pick a client, just to have a client. Now the address doesn't pop up here because I didn't put an address for the client, and that's going to confuse the system. If I put something down here and I try to pick a service item, which I know I can calculate sales tax on, a guitar, such as the ELP, then I know I just calculated sales tax. There it is right there. Nothing's going to happen down here until we click somewhere else. So if you're frustrated before clicking somewhere else, then that's because it hasn't calculated anything yet. But if you click off of it, then it's going to give you something. It might calculate the sales tax, or it might give you some other calculation. Here, it gives us nothing. And that's because it's basically saying, I don't know what to do because there's no address here. Now, it might revert, if there's no address here, to the home address, the current address of the invoice, meaning the address of the company, and or it could use the billing address here. So, but here it's not calculating, and therefore what I'm going to change here is going to be the address, and that'll give the data, I hope, in order for the system to calculate it. So I'm going to say now we're going to have this address. And by the way, the company address might be doing that because of the address I chose to set the company up in, which is one I'm not exactly familiar with in terms of sales tax. I would think there's sales tax in the address I chose. But in any case, I'm just going to change the other address to an area I know there's sales tax. And then it's going to do the calculation here. So we have this calculation, and so it calculated the sales tax based on that information that's now in there. Now, of course, if we calculate what that sales tax is, we can do a quick calculation, see if it's correct by just saying 38.75 is the sales tax they calculated, divided by the sales amount is 500. So the sales tax is 7.75% that they're calculating. So you could go in there and try to verify the sales tax based on what you believe the sales tax to be on your location. So do some research on that. For the purposes of this problem, we're actually going to make the sales tax a flat rate at 5%. So we're going to actually have to go in there just for purposes of making it all standardized. That's why we're doing this, because obviously other states are going to have different sales tax. Would rather just use something like a pretty easy, standard, kind of even number. Not really even, but 5%. So we're going to say 500 times 0.05 or 5%. And that would give us $25. So I'm going to see if it lets me change this for purposes of the problem to 25, and then click off that, and it says, are you sure you want to do that? And we're going to say, yeah, keep the changes. And then it's going to say, why are you doing that? Did we mess up? And we'll give it some feedback, and it's nice that it allows us to make the change. And this is just an example problem. So I'll give them the feedback there that this is just an example problem. The system probably worked great. And there we have the 25, and we can then go forward. So in order to do this, however, in order to make this kind of example thing work, you have to set something up first, or else you won't be able to put anything into the sales tax field, which means that you got to set up a sales tax location which has tax. Make sure that you have the address here and or in the company file so that it knows what address to calculate the tax on. Then once the calculation is made, you can change it at this time to some other number for whatever reason you might want to do that, such as an example problem.